To your point, we are our own worst critic.
Yeah.
And you know what you hate about yourself or what you really aren't a fan of.
Yeah.
Other people be like, damn.
Right.
I love that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That makes you unique, and your uniqueness is often what makes you beautiful.
Absolutely.
So
that's a positive message. I like
physically
that.
and mentally.
Right. That's awesome.
So.
I mean, to your point, comedy can definitely help with all of that stuff. It's just so hard to write, though.
Yeah, comedy's hard to write for sure.
I was watching. So I've been doing a lot of studying, writing wise, and so I'll watch and play things that I really loved for reasons I don't know.
Yeah.
And I've been trying to break them down using like techniques I found with other people breaking them down themselves.
Yeah.
There's an artist that breaks down Matt Hill or Mike Hill. Breaks down a couple of really big movies, and contrasts those films to now. So they're mainly older, and contrasts them to now, and kind of isolates the biggest differences, and how Hollywood blockbusters are kind of vapid in comparison lately. But yeah, it's tough to fit in so much meaning into something that's so short form. So I was watching the movie Click yesterday.
Oh, I've seen that.
Adam Sandler.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah.
It's probably one of his better ones writing wise. And so I was trying to break it apart because all of his movies are pretty templated. I think for 10 years he made so many.
Yeah.
And they're all basically the same kind of story.
Yeah.
But that to me was the one that almost like clicked all these really nice boxes all together. And so I was trying to break that down, and it's all about family and taking taking things for granted. And that was a big thing with the whole movie. And
that was sort of the theme.
Oh yeah.
Taking things for granted.
Absolutely.
So easy to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Or not being able to see things that are right in front of you.
Yeah.
And they show, so what I think is good in filmmaking is when you show and you don't tell. And that's tough to do, but I remember a scene that was so vivid to me, and it was simple.
Yeah.
Because they kind of lay out this whole theme in the first 20 minutes, and then he comes back home after getting the controller, right? And he walks in, and he's in his kitchen, and he sees this table, and there's 3 things on the table. So there's a bowl of fruit, super healthy, whole foods, and then there's 2 boxes of Twinkies, and I think like Yodels or something like that.
Okay.
And so he walks in, passes the fruit, and says, don't get a Twinkie. I will get a Yodel though. And then he walks off, and I'm like, dude, that's the movie.
That's great.
That's the whole thing, because he bypasses what's good for him right in front of him for what he wants. He denies himself what he wants and has what he wants anyway.
Yeah.
And that's the whole film right there.
And there's so much meaning jam-packed into that one moment.
Right.
For instance, sacrificing what we want long-term for something that's just pleasing temporarily.
Absolutely.
And that's the source of so much unhappiness, is sacrificing something that would make us happy long-term for something that's just instant gratification, right?
Sure.
That's, profound right there in that one little moment.
And I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And
the inner dialogue, which is so relatable.
Totally.
And
Absolutely.
I feel like any type of universal truth is worth writing and worth producing.
Absolutely.
That could speak to any human.
Yeah. Well, that's one thing I find in my writing is I'm trying to cultivate my formula.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
And a lot of my stuff is long form.
Yeah.
And I don't really worry about timing so much, but I like to follow little rules. So I like 3-act structure, but now I'm trying to be no, I want 5.
Yeah.
And I found The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. You've seen the new one?
I haven't seen the new one. I saw the old one.
The old one still does.
original.
Yeah. But in the new one, David Fincher, Aaron Sorkin, I think that's the writer, he did it in a 5-act story structure, but each act has everything you would find in a whole story. So there's a protagonist, an antagonist, an inciting incident, something that challenges the protagonist. And it doesn't have to be a bad guy. It can just be a situation.
Yeah.
And then the opportunity to then either accept or deny what's going on there. And then there's a resolution. So it has everything you need in a single story in each act.
Yeah.
And that's so crazy. So in breaking it down, I found a YouTuber that did it. And I think that's what I want to do, my formula, when it comes to plot. But on top of that, to your point, thematic, adding that in there, like that, making those themes why people act the way they do, and then in those actions, it moves the story along. So difficult to do.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So it's like a whole, formula, a whole story in each act.
Each act,
Each
yes. So
act
you
is
could,
like one whole
absolutely,
rising action, climax, falling, all those little things.
all of
in
them.
one act. And
Yes.
then it's but
And
the whole thing's still one long story.
Right.
Okay.
And so at the end of every act, that infers the next act to go in.
Yeah.
So whatever that climax is the inciting incident to the next.
Oh, that's so interesting. Yeah.
Super cool. Super cool.
Okay.
But
see, I love anything like that deviates from the predictable, formulaic.
absolutely.
And that's the hard thing with movie making these days. It's original content.
It's
deviating
tough.
from the formula, because the formula works. The formula is a formula for me. It works, but then for me personally, I get bored. I get some movies are predictable. It's like, I've seen this plot. I
Right.
know what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
So something like that I find really interesting, when you can find a way to deviate from the formula or expand
Yeah.
and make it your own.
Do the unpredictable.
Unpredictable. Yeah.
That's the tough part.
That's tough.
Yeah. And then it's daring too, because I like to put myself in my work so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like they're really intimate issues. Yeah, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to write about this.
Right, because it's vulnerable.
It's vulnerable.
It's like, this is something really big. I feel like that's the best art.
Absolutely.
And when you are vulnerable like that, it's what's going to reach and hit people and on a deep kind of level. So
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
that's important, to be vulnerable, and
Yeah,
you
but-
have to be in this field.
No, absolutely. But that leads to the last thing, where it's like, whenever I create something, that's why I haven't really done much of anything narrative.
Yeah.
It's because as I'm writing them, by the end of it, I want to leave it on the audience to kind of draw their own conclusions.
That's great. Yeah.
But man, that's a tough ask.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that. So some of my favorite stories aren't really dogmatic.
Okay.
Like, they're not basically saying, like, teaching a lesson or saying this is how the world should be, this is how you
Sure.
should think. Like you said, they're put on the audience, so the audience is left to wonder, question something about themselves.
Absolutely.
Or they're thought provoking, and it's more of like to stimulate conversation versus being like dogmatic and
Right.
like. So I think that's really cool that you like that, like putting it on the audience.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. I'm all about it.
Yeah.
It's all like a big puzzle too.
Right.
Yeah. Those are the kind of stories I really gravitate toward.
Me too.
Yeah. Did you watch a lot of movies last year?
I don't know what you would consider a lot, but I did see. Oh my gosh! So I just saw Parasite.
Is that good?
And
I haven't seen it yet.
I didn't see all of the Golden Globes. I did see Ricky Gervais' speech, which I thought was hilarious.
Awesome.
And I think anybody who got triggered by that got triggered because they know that he had a point.
Absolutely. He was right.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, the celebrities that got triggered, I feel like they probably know he has a little bit of a point there.
Absolutely.
But anyway, Parasite got nominated for all these things. So I saw it recently, and that was an amazing film, I have to say. I would totally recommend it.
I have to see it.
It's talking about breaking formulas. It's almost like it switches genres.
Really?
It starts off, you think it's like a comedy, sort of a social commentary, but also mostly like a comedy. And then all of a sudden, funny, silly, and then bam, shit gets real.
Really?
And it makes the violence that much more impactful and powerful because it's so unexpected. And
Right.
it becomes dramatic so quickly, and the acting is amazing.
I love that director too.
And the social commentary is so poignant right now, as far
Right.
as like the class distinctions, and it's so artfully and beautifully done. I would recommend it. Parasite. Go see it.
Will do. Will do. All right. Kimberly's recommendations.
Yeah.
I'm all about that, man. That's one I really wanted to see
Mm-hmm.
before they announced whoever got nominated
Yeah.
for the Oscars. I try to follow it every year and then pretend I didn't.
Yeah, I mean the Oscars, like I feel like a lot of it's just smoke and mirrors, and
It's a popularity contest.
It's politics, and it's also just advertising. It's just to
Absolutely.
advertise.
It is.
the
It is.
movie business. And
No, absolutely. But one thing I do like about it is because I'll watch a lot of movies. Like I try to keep up with the ones that I really want to see every month.
Yeah.
And sometimes I make it, sometimes I don't. But last year, I missed Parasite, but I did watch Knives Out.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Oh
Yeah.
my God. So good.
You liked it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I
loved
liked it too.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That writer, Ryan Johnson, writer-director.
Yeah.
He's on point, man.
Yeah, and even when it got a little far-fetched, you're still on board.
Sure.
Because
Well, that's the
It
genre.
hooked you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was really great.
That one's a good one. Did you watch Midsummer?
I did.
What did you think? Dish girl.
So that genre is my least favorite. I like movies that leave a positive message and are inspiring and enlightening. Uplifting.
And then you have Midsummer.
So hard. But I don't want to be, I always want to give something a chance. And, I got all this attention. And so I went to go see it.
Okay.
And
In theaters?
yes. And it was very disturbing to me.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, I understand, like artfully, like cinematically, like the technical elements. It was so beautifully shot, and I appreciate all the symbolism, and I appreciate the artistic aesthetic, and then I also saw like The Wicker Man, and I know it's sort of like
sure, with Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, and it's kind of like pays tribute to that. Yeah. I saw like that version, but I also saw the original Wicker Man.
Oh, absolutely.
And
that was a good film.
So what I appreciate about the original Wicker Man is it actually touches on real beliefs based on real pagan rituals. Versus like Midsommar, it didn't really touch on like real pagan rituals.
Right.
It was like an exaggerated,
right. It was all to benefit what that theme
exactly
was.
Yeah. And for people who like that theme, they will love the movie for sure.
No, I mean, to your point, that's one thing I love, because like you, I love a good, uplifting, positive story.
Yeah.
I do. It's something that just tugs on me.
Yeah.
Like, Home. You ever watch that one?
No, I haven't seen that one.
Oh
No.
man, it's like that's probably the most positive you could be. It tugs on my heartstring. Like Moana, same way.
Oh, yeah.
Like any kind of animated movie,
Yeah.
especially if it's well written.
Yeah.
Will really get me going. But then you have like Midsommar, and that director did the year before Hereditary.
Hereditary,
Did you
yeah.
watch
I
that?
didn't see Hereditary, no.
Well, if you do watch it, then you can see it's almost like it gives context to why this director writer chooses those themes, because they're the same.
Yeah.
They're all about mental health,
Yeah.
religious themes, almost cultish.
Yeah.
And then drugs. That's a
Yeah.
Those three are probably the most prominent.
Yeah.
Oh, and prophecy. Cycles.
Yeah.
I love cycles.
Yeah.
And not so much prophecy, I guess, kind of, but cycles is one thing that gets me. But that's something I would say for him it's more fortune tellery, because like from the beginning to the end of both films, you see everything that you see the film in the first few minutes.
Yeah.
The story's all there.
Yeah, and I do like one of the things I liked about Midsommar is all those crazy rituals and like weird, it does kind of sort of make you examine our life and what kinds of crazy rituals that don't make a whole lot of sense, that are a little culty.
Absolutely.
And so, I do appreciate, that kind of thing. Like, some of the things I do are a little culty as well. Like,
Yeah.
So I like that. But
how do you feel about the commentary between relationships?
Oh, like it was all just like an allegory for like a relationship. You mean like the Midsommar or?
I mean, that's one thing that people brought up the most.
Right.
Yeah, don't see this with your girlfriend.
Yeah.
Right. That's what they said. And I remember going in and watching it with that kind of mindset, and I could see why people said that.
Yeah.
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 That guy was a dick. I mean, for real.
Yeah, I know. He was like the epitome of just like completely clueless, like
Selfish.
self-centered, just like
I mean,
vapid kind of.
Totally. But to be honest, I mean, I want to say the woman was too. A little bit.
You think so?
I think so. I mean,
Well,
she had reason to be.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I think they both suffered from a little bit of the same
Self-involvement. Yeah, you know, she was dealing with her own issues. She was very much absorbed in her own drama.
Yeah. I mean, but rightfully so.
But rightfully so. Yeah, of course. But yeah, the whole thing just was pretty disturbing to me for the most part.
Yeah.
But it sort of makes you question, why is this disturbing?
Yeah.
You know, why, like anytime you're triggered by something, you should ask, like, is that because it reveals some truth about humanity that you don't want to face? And
Right.
I do appreciate, I love films that are positive and uplifting, but I also like films that are realistic and that expose the dark aspects of humanity as well.
Absolutely.
And then reveal how you can rise above that. So that's what I think it was missing.
You think so?
Well, I mean, like for me personally, that's just my preference. But
no, sure.
I don't, I don't like films that are just like fairy tales. Unrealistic.
Okay.
They don't show both sides of the coin, both the light and shadow. I mean, this is the yogi in me,
Sure.
Nothing
Balance.
balance, right? Like the darker aspects of humanity, and then, but I always like films that have a little more light than dark.
Sure. That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. Yeah. I mean, that's what you gravitate toward.
Right.
Yeah. I like a good blend of the two.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think you can have everything. Like in my favorite movies, it's not afraid to be, pushing boundaries, and questioning, life, beliefs, but at the same time, it being lighthearted. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it's fair to have a bit of everything.
A bit of everything. Yeah. Those are my favorite movies. Like a little bit of comic relief here and there. If it's so dark, I'm questioning, what is the point of this movie? Just to depress you? Why would I watch that?
Yeah.
But if it's so like happy fairy tale, it's like, I can't even get on board with this. This isn't realistic,
Yeah.
So it's nice to have a balance.
That's funny you mentioned that though, because that's something that happened in the first film, Hereditary.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's almost, thinking about it right now, it's almost like they're Greek tragedies.
Yeah.
They're just, it seems like that was one of the questions in the first movie. It's in both of his films thematically, but there's a scene in the first film where, there's like a young kid, a teenage dude, and he's just growing up.
Yeah.
Right. And in the movie, the scene is him, kind of oogling this girl in class, and he likes her a lot, and he's trying to impress her. He's a stoner kid. And in the classroom, the teacher is talking about a Greek tragedy. Okay. And, he's asking, and if you listen to what he's saying, he's basically setting up the story. And even, I thought that was really cool because, the story is a downer. Yeah. The bad guy wins. Yeah. And the hero doesn't. I know. Yeah. But that's what they're talking about in the classroom. And one of the girl that he's oogling at asks, I want to say it was her. She asks the teacher, well, if we know in the beginning that the hero will fail, what is the point of the story? And he's like, that's a great question. Who wants to answer that?
Yeah. Cautionary tale.
Yeah. Or to learn something.
Learn something from their mistakes.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's really cool stuff. Yeah. I love that. that.
Yeah. And I can appreciate, the point of those movies as well. They're just, they're just not my favorite.